It started with diesel fumes, a flickering neon sign, 4 masked figures with weapons drawn, and a woman in a business suit screaming for help until a single dad slammed his truck into park and changed. 2 lives forever. He thought it was just instinct kicking in from years of training. She knew it was the moment that would shatter carefully built walls, ignite something neither expected, and bring a convoy of black SUVs to his doorstep before dawn. What he didn't know, saving her life, would force him to confront his own fears of connection again. What she didn't know, the quiet man with calloused hands and a guarded heart, would show her what real strength looked like, not in boardrooms or bank accounts, but in choosing to show up when the world has given you every reason to walk away. Sometimes courage wears work boots, and sometimes the person you rescue ends up saving you right back. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you. Make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The rain hadn't started yet, but the sky threatened it. Dark clouds rolled over Pinewood Heights like a warning no one bothered to read. The gas station on Highway 52, one of those forgotten places with 2 pumps, a flickering Coca-Cola sign, and a cashier who'd seen better decades sat under a buzzing fluorescent halo that barely fought back the encroaching darkness. Dylan Ashford pulled his battered Chevy Silverado into the lot, engine rattling like loose change in a tin can. The truck had seen him through deployments, cross-country moves, and more sleepless nights than he cared to count. Now it just needed gas. He stepped out, boots hitting cracked asphalt, and stretched his back. The air smelled like oil and approaching storm. Inside the convenience store, he could see the cashier, an older woman with gray hair pulled into a bun, ringing up lottery tickets for someone in a stained baseball cap. Dylan unscrewed his gas cap and started pumping. Premium was out of the question. Regular would have to do, just like everything else in his life lately. His daughter, Sienna, was home with Mrs. Kowalski from next door. She was 9 now, sharp as a tack, and far too observant for her own good. She'd asked him that morning why he always looked tired. "Just thinking, kiddo," he'd said. "About Mom?" He'd paused, coffee mug halfway to his lips. "Sometimes." Sienna had nodded, then gone back to her cereal like the conversation hadn't just carved a hole in his chest. His wife, Rebecca, had been gone 3 years. Cancer didn't care that she was only 32. Didn't care that Sienna still needed her mother. Didn't care that Dylan had no idea how to braid hair or explain why the world could be so unfair. The pump clicked off. Dylan squeezed out the last few cents and hung the nozzle back up. That's when he heard it. A scream, sharp, desperate, cutting through the hum of the highway like a knife. Dylan's head snapped toward the sound. Near the air pump station on the far side of the lot, a black sedan sat with its driver's door open. 4 figures in dark clothing and ski masks surrounded it, yanking at someone inside. A woman. She was fighting back, heels scraping against pavement, one hand gripping the doorframe while another clawed at the nearest attacker. Her voice was strong despite the terror. "Get off me! Someone help!" The attendants inside the store hadn't noticed yet. No other cars were nearby. Just Dylan, 50 feet away, with a choice to make. He didn't hesitate. Years of training didn't leave you. They slept in your muscles, waited in your reflexes, and woke up the second adrenaline hit your bloodstream. Dylan moved. He crossed the lot in seconds, boots pounding pavement, hands already forming fists. The first masked figure turned just as Dylan's shoulder slammed into him, sending him sprawling into the concrete barrier. "Back off!" Dylan's voice was low, controlled, the kind of tone that didn't ask twice. The second attacker lunged with a tire iron. Dylan sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist mid-swing, twisted hard, and drove his knee into the attacker's ribs. The tire iron clattered to the ground. The third came from the side. Dylan caught the movement in his peripheral vision, ducked under a wild punch, and delivered a precise jab to the man's solar plexus. The attacker doubled over, gasping. The fourth hesitated, eyes darting between his fallen companions and Dylan, who now stood between them and the woman. "You want to try?" Dylan asked quietly. The fourth masked figure grabbed one of his friends and bolted. The others scrambled after him, limping and cursing as they disappeared into a rusted van that peeled out of the lot with smoking tires. Silence crashed. Back down. Dylan turned. The woman sat half in, half out of the sedan, chest heaving, eyes wide. Her hair, dark, sleek, expensively cut, had come loose from its clip. Her tailored gray suit was torn at the shoulder. But what struck Dylan most was her expression. Not gratitude, not relief. Shock, like she couldn't believe what had just happened. "You okay?" Dylan asked, offering his hand. She stared at it for a moment, then took it. Her grip was firm despite the trembling. "I think so," she said, voice steadier than he expected. They came out of nowhere." Dylan helped her to her feet. She was tall, maybe 5'9", with sharp features and eyes that looked like they were used to being in control. "Did they take anything?" he asked. She patted her jacket, then exhaled. "No, they didn't get my bag. Just tried to pull me out of the car." Dylan glanced at the sedan. Luxury model. Tinted windows. Definitely not the kind of car you saw at a highway gas station at 9 p.m. "You should call the police," he said. "I will." She looked at him now, really looked. You didn't even think about it. You just came." Dylan shrugged. Couldn't stand there and watch. Most people would have. He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The woman brushed hair from her face, composing herself with visible effort. "I'm Isabel," she said. "Isabel Hargrove. Dylan Ashford." "Thank you, Dylan." Her voice softened. "I mean it. Thank you." He nodded once. "You sure you're okay to drive?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Honestly? No, my hands won't stop shaking." Dylan looked at the empty lot, the dark highway beyond, the storm clouds rolling closer. "There's a diner about 10 miles north," he said. "Brightvale Cafe. Stays open late. You could follow me there, get some coffee, call someone to pick you up." Isabel studied him for a long moment, calculating, weighing, deciding. "Okay," she said finally. "That sounds good." 20 minutes later, they sat across from each other in a corner booth at Brightvale Cafe. The place smelled like burnt coffee and pie that had seen better days. A jukebox in the corner played something mournful and forgettable. Isabel wrapped both hands around a mug of black coffee. She'd stopped shaking, but her knuckles were still white. "I don't usually end up at gas stations on Highway 52, she said, almost apologetically. Dylan sipped his own coffee. "Lost? Detour. Road closure near Oakmont sent me this way." She paused. "I was heading back from a conference in Belridge. Trying to get home before midnight." "Where's home?" "Creston City." Dylan raised his eyebrows slightly. Creston City was 2 hours away, and it was the kind of place where people wore suits that cost more than his truck. "Long drive," he said. "I'm used to it." She set down her mug. "What about you? Do you live around here?" "Pinewood Heights. About 15 minutes from that gas station." She nodded slowly. "And you just happened to be there, needed gas." "Right place, right time." Dylan didn't respond. He'd heard that phrase before, usually from officers pinning medals on people who just survived something they'd never talk about again. Isabel leaned back, studying him with an intensity that made him slightly uncomfortable. "You moved like you've done that before," she said quietly. "Done what?" "Fought, defended. You didn't panic. You didn't freeze. You just acted." Dylan shifted in his seat. "I was in the service. Comes with the territory. Army? Marines." She nodded like that explained everything. "Maybe it did. How long have you been out?" 4 years. "And now?" "I work construction." Build things instead of. He stopped himself. Instead of breaking them? She finished gently. He met her eyes. There was no judgment there. Just understanding. Yeah, he said. They sat in silence for a moment. The waitress refilled their cups without asking. Outside, the first drops of rain began to patter against the windows. I should let you get home, Isabel said. You probably have someone waiting. Just my daughter. Neighbors watching her. How old? 9, Isabel smiled, and it was the first real warmth he'd seen from her. That's a good age. It's a hard age, Dylan admitted. She lost her mom 3 years ago. Still figuring out how to be enough for her on my own. Isabel's expression shifted. Something soft in her eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're managing. But even as he said it, Dylan knew it wasn't entirely true. Managing wasn't the same as thriving. Managing was survival. And some days, survival took everything he had. Isabel reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. She slid it across the table. Dylan picked it up. Embossed lettering. Heavy cardstock. Isabel Hargrove, Chief Executive Officer, Hargrove Industries. He looked up at her. CEO? He said. She nodded. Tech manufacturing. We design components for aerospace and medical equipment. Dylan set the card down carefully. That's a long way from highway gas stations. It is. She paused. Dylan, what you did tonight, most people wouldn't have done that. And I don't just mean the fighting. You stopped. You helped. You didn't ask for anything in return. You didn't ask for anything in return. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Didn't need anything in return. I know. She stood, smoothing her jacket. But if you ever do, call me. Dylan looked at the card again, then slipped it into his pocket. Take care of yourself, Isabel. You too. Dylan. She walked out into the rain, got into her sedan, and drove away. Dylan sat alone in the booth for a few more minutes, staring at his coffee. He didn't know it yet, but everything had just changed. 3 days passed. Dylan didn't think much about the gas station. Not consciously anyway. But sometimes, while hammering nails into framing or cutting 2x4s, his mind would drift back to those few minutes. The way Isabel had looked at him. The steadiness in her voice, despite the fear. The business card sat on his kitchen counter, propped against the coffee maker. Sienna noticed it on the second morning. Who's Isabel Hargrove? She asked, pouring herself a bowl of cereal. Someone I helped the other night. Helped how? She had car trouble. Sienna gave him that look, the one that said she knew he was simplifying things, but would let it slide for now. Is she nice? Dylan thought about it. Yeah, I think so. Are you going to call her? Probably not. Why? Because people like her don't really need people like me once the emergency's over. Sienna chewed her cereal thoughtfully. That's dumb. What is? Assuming things about people before you know them. Dylan smiled despite himself. When do you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen. That evening, after dropping Sienna at soccer practice, Dylan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Dylan? It's Isabel Hargrove. He paused, phone pressed to his ear, standing in the parking lot of the community center. Hey, he said. Everything okay? Yes, I just wanted to thank you again. Properly this time. You already did. I said thank you. That's not the same as showing gratitude. Dylan frowned. I don't need anything. I know you don't. That's why I'm calling. There was a pause. I'd like to take you to dinner, Isabel said. Nothing formal. Just a chance to talk without fluorescent diner lighting and the smell of burnt hash browns. Dylan hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea, he said carefully. Why not? Because we don't really know each other. That's the point of dinner. He could hear the smile in her voice. I have a daughter, Dylan said. I can't just go out whenever. Bring her. That caught him off guard. You want me to bring my 9-year-old to dinner with a stranger? I want you to bring your daughter to dinner with someone who owes you a debt of gratitude and happens to make excellent conversation. Dylan couldn't help it. He laughed. You're persistent. I'm a CEO. Persistence is in the job description. He thought about it. Sienna would probably enjoy it. And honestly, when was the last time he'd had an actual conversation with another adult that wasn't about lumber orders or parent-teacher conferences? Okay, he said. But somewhere casual. Sienna's picky. I know just the place. 2 nights later, Dylan and Sienna sat across from Isabel at the Copper Kettle, a family-style restaurant on the outskirts of Pinewood Heights. It had red leather booths, checkered floors, and a menu that hadn't changed since 1987. Sienna had been skeptical at first, eyeing Isabel with the kind of scrutiny only a 9-year-old could muster, but Isabel didn't talk down to her. She didn't ask patronizing questions or fake interest. Instead, she asked Sienna what position she played in soccer. Midfielder, Sienna said proudly. That's the hardest position, Isabel said. You have to defend and attack. Sienna's eyes lit up. Exactly. Nobody gets that. Dylan watched the exchange, surprised. You know soccer? He asked. Isabel nodded. Played through college. Tore my ACL junior year and had to quit, but I still follow it. Sienna launched into an analysis of her team's last game. And Isabel listened like it was the most important thing she'd heard all week. Dylan felt something unfamiliar. Relief, maybe. Or hope. The sense that Sienna was connecting with someone other than him, and it was good. After they ordered, Sienna excused herself to wash her hands. Isabel turned to Dylan. She's wonderful, she said. She is. You're doing a good job. Dylan looked down at his water glass. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. That's called being a parent. He smiled faintly. You have any? No. Her voice was quieter now. I was married once. We talked about it. But he wanted me to choose between the company and a family. I chose the company. He left. I'm sorry. She shrugged. It was 5 years ago. I've made peace with it. Mostly. Dylan nodded. He understood that kind of peace, the kind that wasn't really peace, just an agreement not to look too closely at the wound. Can I ask you something? Isabel said. Sure. Why construction? Dylan considered the question. Because it's simple. You build something, and at the end of the day, you can see what you made. There's no ambiguity. No gray area. Just walls and floors and roofs. And that's what you need? Simplicity? After everything I saw overseas, yeah. I need to know what I'm building instead of what I'm tearing down. Isabel nodded slowly. I get that. Sienna returned, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Movies, books, Sienna's campaign to convince Dylan to get a dog. By the time dessert arrived, Dylan realized he'd laughed more in 2 hours than he had in 2 months. As they left the restaurant, Sienna walked ahead to the truck. Isabel touched Dylan's arm gently. Thank you for coming, she said. Thank you for inviting us. I meant what I said. If you ever need anything, call me. Dylan looked at her. In the parking lot light, she looked less like a CEO and more like someone who'd been lonely for a long time and had just found a moment of warmth. Same goes for you, he said. She smiled. Deal. As Dylan drove home, Sienna asked, Do you like her? She's nice. That's not what I asked. Dylan glanced at his daughter. Yeah, I like her. Sienna nodded, satisfied. Good. She likes you too. How do you know? Because she kept looking at you the way you look at Mom's picture sometimes. Dylan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He didn't know what to say to that. So he just drove. and let the silence hold all the things he couldn't name yet. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of stillness that made Dylan uneasy. No construction noise. No alarm clocks. Just the sound of Sienna watching cartoons in the living room and coffee brewing in the kitchen. He stood at the counter, staring at his phone. Isabel had texted him the night before. "Thank you again for dinner. Sienna is delightful. You should be proud." "I am. And thank you for making her feel heard. Anytime, truly." He hadn't responded after that. Didn't know what to say. Didn't want to seem too eager or too distant. Didn't want to mess up something that felt fragile and new. His phone buzzed. Another text from Isabel. "I know this is last minute, but are you free this afternoon? There's something I'd like to show you." Dylan hesitated, then typed, "What kind of something?" "A surprise. A good one, I promise." He looked toward the living room where Sienna was sprawled on the couch, completely absorbed in animated chaos. "I'd need to bring Sienna. Even better." 2 hours later, Dylan pulled up to an address Isabel had sent him. It was on the outskirts of Creston City, in an industrial area that had seen better decades. Warehouses with faded signs, empty lots overgrown with weeds, chain-link fences, but one building stood out. It was massive, maybe 40,000 square feet, with tall windows and a rusted metal exterior that had once been painted blue. A for sale sign hung crookedly near the entrance. Isabel's sleek sedan was already parked out front. She stepped out as Dylan pulled in, wearing jeans, boots, and a casual sweater. She looked different, more relaxed. "What is this place?" Dylan asked as he and Sienna got out of the truck. "A possibility," Isabel said with a small smile. "Come on, I want to show you inside." She had a key. The door creaked open, and they stepped into a cavernous space. Dust motes floated in shafts of sunlight streaming through high windows. The floor was concrete, cracked in places. Old machinery sat abandoned in corners. But the bones of the building were solid. "It used to be a manufacturing plant," Isabel explained. "They made industrial equipment. Closed down 8 years ago." Dylan walked slowly through the space, eyes scanning the structure. The ceiling was high. The support beams were intact. The electrical panels looked old but functional. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. Isabel crossed her arms, watching him. "Because I've been thinking about something since that night at the gas station." "What's that?" "Purpose." Dylan turned to face her. "I run a company worth $500 million, Isabel continued. "We make parts that go into airplanes and medical devices. We employ 3,000 people. And every day I sit in meetings and approve budgets. And make decisions that affect shareholders. I've never met," she paused. "And it all feels hollow." Dylan said nothing. "But when you helped me that night, you didn't do it for recognition or profit. You did it because it was right. And that stuck with me." She walked toward him. "I want to do something that matters. Not just to investors or board members, but to real people. And I think you might know how to do that." "I'm not following," Dylan said carefully. "I'm not following," Dylan said carefully. Isabel gestured to the building around them. "What if we turned this into something? A place where veterans could learn trades, get certified, find work. Carpentry, welding, electrical work. Skills that translate to real jobs." Dylan blinked. "A training center. More than that. A community. A support network. Somewhere people could rebuild their lives after service." His chest tightened. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you understand what it's like to come home and not know where you fit anymore. Because you've rebuilt your own life. And because I think you'd be good at helping others do the same." Sienna tugged on Dylan's sleeve. "Dad, this place is huge." He looked down at her, then back at Isabel. "This would cost a fortune," Dylan said. "I have a fortune. I don't know the first thing about running something like this. But you know about carpentry, about discipline, about what veterans need. I can handle the business side. You handle the heart of it. Dylan walked away, running his hand through his hair. This was too much. Too fast. Too big. I can't, he said. Isabel's face fell slightly, but she nodded. I understand. No, I don't think you do. Dylan turned back to her. I have a daughter who needs stability. I work 60 hours a week just to keep us afloat. I can't afford to take risks on dreams. What if it's not a risk? Isabel said quietly. What if it's a certainty? I'll fund everything. Renovations, equipment, salaries. You'd be paid to build this. Dylan stared at her. Why would you do that? Because I've spent 5 years building wealth and 0 years building meaning. And I think this could change that. Before Dylan could respond, Sienna spoke up. I think you should do it, Dad. He looked at her. Sweetheart, this is complicated. No, it's not, Sienna said matter-of-factly. You always say you want to help people. This is how. Out of the mouths of 9-year-olds. Dylan closed his eyes, took a breath, and felt the weight of possibility pressing against the walls he'd built around himself. I need time to think, he said finally. Take all the time you need, Isabel said. But Dylan? He looked at her. I meant what I said. This isn't charity. This is partnership. And I believe in it. I believe in you. They left the warehouse in silence. On the drive home, Sienna asked, Are you going to say yes? Dylan kept his eyes on the road. I don't know yet. That night, after Sienna was asleep, Dylan sat on his back porch with a beer he wasn't drinking. The stars were out, sharp and clear against the black sky. His phone buzzed. A text from Isabel. But it wasn't words. It was a photo. The warehouse. Photoshopped with new paint, windows, a sign above the door, Ashford Veterans Training Center. His breath caught. Another text followed from Isabel, just a possibility. Sleep on it. Dylan stared at the image for a long time. Then he looked up at the stars and whispered to the night, to Rebecca, to whatever forces had brought him to this moment. What do I do? The stars didn't answer, but somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and the doubt, something whispered back. Trust this. Dylan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The photoshopped image of the warehouse burned into his mind. Ashford Veterans Training Center. His name on a building. His purpose given form. It terrified him. By morning, he'd made a decision. He needed to know more. Not just about the building or the funding, but about Isabel herself. Who was she really? Why was she willing to invest so much in a stranger? He texted her at 7 a.m. Can we talk? Just the two of us. Of course. When? Today, if possible. I'll come to you. Send me your address. She arrived at noon, pulling up to his modest 2-bedroom house in a neighborhood where lawns needed mowing and porches needed paint. Dylan watched from the window as she stepped out of her sedan, dressed simply in slacks and a white blouse. Hair pulled back. She didn't look like a CEO. She looked like someone trying very hard to be normal. He opened the door before she could knock. Come in, he said. His house was clean but worn. Furniture from thrift stores. Photos of Sienna on every surface. A framed picture of Rebecca on the mantel, smiling in a way that made the room feel both warmer and emptier. Isabel noticed it immediately. She was beautiful, she said softly. She was everything. Dylan replied. They sat at his small kitchen table. He'd made coffee, though his hands had been unsteady pouring it. I need to understand something, Dylan began. Why are you really doing this? Isabel wrapped her hands around her mug. I told you. I want to do something meaningful. That's not enough. People don't throw millions at strangers because they want meaning. There's something else. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're right. There is. She set down her mug and took a breath. My father built Hargrove Industries from nothing, she said. He was an engineer who saw an opportunity in aerospace manufacturing and seized it. By the time I was 10, we had 3 factories. By the time I was 20, we'd gone public. Dylan listened. He groomed me to take over. Sent me to the best schools. Introduced me to the right people. Made sure I understood that the company was legacy, responsibility, destiny. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were distant. And then when I was 28, he had a massive stroke. Died 3 days later. And suddenly, I was CEO of a $500 million company with 3,000 employees depending on decisions I wasn't sure I was ready to make. That's a lot of weight, Dylan said quietly. It crushed me, Isabel admitted. For the first 2 years, I worked 100 hours a week. Barely slept. Barely ate. My marriage fell apart. I lost friends. I lost myself. She looked at him now, eyes clear and honest. I built walls, Dylan. Thick ones. Told myself that if I just focused on growth and profit and shareholder value, eventually I'd feel like I'd earned the position. Like I'd honored my father's legacy. Did it work? No, she shook her head. It just made me lonelier. More isolated. More convinced that success and happiness were mutually exclusive. Dylan felt something shift in his chest, recognition. And then 4 masked men tried to pull you out of your car. He said, and then you stopped them without hesitation, she continued. You didn't know who I was. Didn't care about what I could offer. You just helped because someone needed help. She leaned forward. For the first time in 5 years, Dylan, I felt seen. Not as a CEO or an heiress or a business asset. Just as a person who was scared and needed someone to step in. Her voice cracked slightly. And it woke something up in me. This question I'd been ignoring. What's the point of all this wealth and power if I never use it for something that actually matters? Dylan absorbed this. So the training center is what? Redemption? Maybe, Isabel said. Or maybe it's just finally doing what I should have been doing all along. Using resources to help people instead of hoarding them to impress shareholders. She reached across the table, not touching his hand but close. I know this is overwhelming. I know you have every reason to be skeptical. But I'm not offering you charity, Dylan. I'm offering you partnership. Your experience, my resources. Your heart, my infrastructure. Dylan stood up, walked to the window, looked out at his quiet street. What if I fail? He asked. Then we'll fail together and learn from it. What if people don't come? What if veterans don't trust it? Then we'll figure out why and adjust. He turned back to her. You're asking me to risk everything I've built for Sienna. Stability, routine, safety. Isabel stood as well. I'm asking you to show Sienna that sometimes the best way to honor someone you lost is to build something they'd be proud of. That hit him like a punch. Rebecca would have loved this idea. She'd always said Dylan had more to give than just construction work. That he had a gift for helping people feel valued. I need one thing from you, Dylan said. Name it. Complete transparency. Financials, timelines, expectations. If we're doing this, we do it as equals. No surprises. Isabel smiled. Deal. She extended her hand. Dylan looked at it, then took it. Her grip was firm, warm, steady. When do we start? He asked, how about tomorrow? The next week was a blur. Isabel brought in architects, contractors, financial advisors. They walked through the warehouse a dozen times, mapping out classrooms, workshop spaces, offices. Dylan contributed ideas from his construction experience while Isabel handled permits and funding. Sienna came along on weekends, drawing pictures of what she thought the center should look like. Isabel pinned every single one to a corkboard in the temporary office they'd set up. She's got a good eye, Isabel said, studying a crayon rendering of the main entrance. She gets that from her mom, Dylan replied. One evening, as they sat on folding chairs surrounded by blueprints and coffee cups, Isabel asked him something she'd been holding back. Do you ever feel guilty for moving forward? Dylan knew immediately what she meant. Every day, he said. Especially when something good happens. Like I'm betraying Rebecca by being okay without her. Isabel nodded. I felt that way when I started dating again after my divorce. Like I was admitting failure by wanting connection. What changed? I realized that staying stuck isn't loyalty. It's just fear dressed up as honor. Dylan let that settle. Rebecca told me something before she died, he said quietly. She said, don't you dare stop living because I have to. I didn't understand it then. But I think I'm starting to. Isabel looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite name. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. She sounds like she was wise. Recognition. She sounds like she was wise. She was. Dylan stood, stretched his back. And stubborn. And funny. And terrible at remembering to put gas in the car. Isabel laughed. My ex-husband couldn't cook to save his life. Burned water once. I'm still not sure how. They shared a moment of comfortable silence, the kind built on mutual understanding of loss. Thank you, Dylan said. For what? For not treating her memory like a problem to solve. For just letting her exist in the conversation. Isabel's eyes softened. People we've loved don't disappear just because they're gone. They're woven into who we are. Dylan nodded. And for the first time since Rebecca's death, he felt like someone truly understood that. By the end of the month, they had a plan. 6 months to renovate. 3 months to recruit instructors and develop curriculum. Launch date, 1 year from now. It was ambitious. Maybe impossible, but standing in that warehouse, watching sunlight stream through the windows, Dylan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the fragile kind that crumbles under pressure. The solid kind. The kind built on partnership, purpose, and the belief that broken things could be made whole again. Isabel stood beside him, surveying their future. Think we can pull this off? She asked. Dylan smiled. I think we'd better. She bumped his shoulder with hers. That's the spirit. As they walked out together, Dylan's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Kowalski. Sienna wants to know if Miss Isabel is coming to dinner again. He showed Isabel the message. She grinned. Tell her I'll bring dessert. And just like that, the walls Dylan had built around his life began to crack. Not breaking. Just opening, letting light in. 3 months into the renovation, the warehouse had transformed. What was once a hollowed-out shell of industrial decay now hummed with possibility. New drywall covered the walls. Electrical wiring snaked through conduits. The concrete floors had been sealed and painted. Sunlight poured through cleaned windows, illuminating a space that was beginning to look less like a graveyard and more like a future. Dylan stood in what would become the main workshop. Power drill in hand, installing shelving units. Sweat dampened his shirt despite the cool autumn air. Around him, a crew of contractors worked steadily, their voices echoing off the high ceilings. Isabel walked in carrying 2 coffee cups and a folder tucked under her arm. Break time, she announced. Dylan set down the drill and accepted the coffee gratefully. You're going to spoil me. That's the plan. They sat on a stack of lumber, overlooking the progress. The space was massive, easily 10,000 square feet in this section alone. Enough room for multiple workstations, tool storage, and classroom areas. I've been working on something, Isabel said, opening the folder. Inside were detailed organizational charts, financial projections, and a mission statement. Dylan scanned the documents. Ashford Veterans Training Center. Rebuilding lives through skills, community, and purpose. What do you think? Isabel asked. I think it sounds official. Good, because I want to make this official. She pulled out another document. A contract. Dylan's eyebrows rose. What's this? Partnership agreement. You'd be co-director. Equal say in operations, curriculum, hiring. Salary commensurate with the position. She slid the paper toward him. Dylan stared at the number listed under compensation. His hands went still. Isabel. This is triple what I make now. It's what the position is worth. I can't accept this. Why not? Because it's too much. I haven't proven I can run something like this. Isabel set down her coffee and turned to face him fully. Dylan, in the 3 months we've worked together, you've coordinated with contractors, designed workshop layouts, reached out to veteran organizations, and somehow managed to keep everything on schedule and under budget. You've proven yourself 10 times over. That's construction management. This is different. How? This is people's lives. Their futures. If I mess this up, it's not just a missed deadline. It's someone who needed help and didn't get it. Isabel's expression softened. And that's exactly why you're the right person for this. Because you care that much. Dylan looked away, jaw tight. I'm scared, he admitted quietly. Of what? Of failing. Of letting people down. Of Sienna seeing me try something big and fall flat. Isabel was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice gentle but firm. My father used to say that fear is just clarity waiting to be acknowledged. You're scared because you know how important this is. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Dylan met her eyes. What if I'm not enough? He asked. Then you'll have me. And a team. And a community of people who believe in this as much as we do. She placed her hand over the contract. Sign this, Dylan. Not because you're certain, but because you're willing to try. He stared at the document for a long time. Then he picked up the pen and signed. Isabel's face broke into a genuine smile. Welcome aboard, Co-Director Ashford. Dylan couldn't help but smile back. This is really happening, isn't it? It really is. That evening, Dylan sat Sienna down at the kitchen table. I need to talk to you about something important, he said. Sienna looked up from her homework, immediately attentive. Are you okay? I'm good. Better than good, actually. He took a breath. I signed a contract today. I'm going to be running the Veterans Center with Isabel. Sienna's eyes went wide. Really? Really? She jumped up and hugged him. Dad, that's amazing. Dylan held her tight, feeling her small frame pressed against him, and realized how much of his fear had been about her. About providing. About being stable. About not letting her down. It's going to mean some changes, he said. I'll be working different hours. Some evenings, some weekends. But I'll make sure we still have our time together. Sienna pulled back, looking at him seriously. Dad, you should do this. Mom would want you to. His throat tightened. You think so? I know so. She always said you were good at helping people. This is how you help people. Dylan pulled her close again, blinking back unexpected tears. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, Sienna said, echoing her earlier words. You're just now catching up. Over the next 2 months, the center came together with breathtaking speed. Classrooms were outfitted with desks and whiteboards. The workshop area received top-of-the-line equipment, table saws, welding stations, electrical training kits. A small library was established in one corner, stocked with technical manuals and career resources. Isabel handled the business side with precision. She secured partnerships with local unions, arranged for certification programs, and set up a scholarship fund for veterans who couldn't afford the minimal tuition fees. Dylan focused on the people. He reached out to veteran organizations, attended VA meetings, and personally called every former service member he knew to spread the word. The response was overwhelming. Within 3 weeks, they had 50 applications for the first cohort. One evening, as they reviewed applications together in the newly finished office, Isabel paused on one file. "Listen to this," she said, reading aloud. "My name is Trevor Hayes. I served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Since coming home, I've struggled to find work that feels meaningful. I heard about your center from a friend. I don't have much experience, but I'm willing to learn. I just need a chance." Dylan felt something twist in his chest. "That could have been me." "That's why this matters," Isabel said. They worked late into the night, reviewing applications, making notes, discussing which candidates would be the best fit for the first-class dot at some point. Isabel leaned back in her chair and rubbed her eyes. "I can't remember the last time I worked this hard and actually felt good about it," she said. Dylan looked at her. "You're really in this, aren't you? This isn't just a project for you." "No," she said. "It's become something more." "What?" She met his gaze. "Purpose. For the first time in 5 years, I wake up excited about the day. Not anxious. Not obligated. Excited." Dylan felt the air shift between them. "I feel it too," he said quietly. Isabel stood, walked to the window overlooking the workshop floor. "Can I tell you something?" "Always. When I was married, my ex used to say I was married to the company, not to him. And he was right. I prioritized profits over partnership. Success over connection." She turned back to Dylan. "But this? Building something with you? It's shown me what real partnership looks like." Dylan stood as well, moving closer. "Isabel, I need to be honest with you about something." "What?" "I'm starting to care about you. Not just as a business partner. As a person." Her breath caught slightly. "Dylan, we should be careful. This is professional. We have a lot at stake, and mixing personal feelings could complicate things." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm telling you now. So we can decide together how to handle it." Isabel looked at him, really looked, and he saw the same conflict in her eyes that he felt in his chest. "I care about you too," she said softly. "More than I expected to. More than I probably should." They stood there, 2 feet apart, the weight of unspoken possibility hanging between them. "So what do we do?" Dylan asked. Isabel smiled, a little sad, a little hopeful. "We take it slow. We focus on the center. And we see where this goes without forcing it." Dylan nodded. "I can do that. Good." But as she gathered her things to leave, she paused at the door. "Dylan?" "Yeah? Thank you for being honest. Thank you for not running." She smiled. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere." And as she walked out into the night, Dylan stood alone in the office, looking at the stack of applications on the desk, the blueprints on the wall, and the future taking shape around him. For the first time since Rebecca died, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The first day of classes at Ashford Veterans Training Center arrived on a Monday morning in late spring. Dylan stood at the entrance, watching as 15 veterans filed in. Some wore caps pulled low. Others had shoulders hunched against invisible weight. A few carried coffee cups like shields. All of them looked uncertain. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself 4 years ago. "Good morning," Dylan said, his voice steady and warm. "Welcome to Ashford. I'm Dylan Ashford, co-director. Before we get started, I want you to know something. This isn't boot camp. Nobody's going to yell at you. Nobody's going to judge you for not knowing things. You're here to learn, and we're here to teach. That's it." The tension in the room eased slightly. Isabel stepped forward, dressed in work clothes rather than her usual business attire. Jeans, boots, hair tied back. "I'm Isabel Hargrove, the other co-director. I know what some of you might be thinking. What does a CEO know about carpentry or welding or electrical work?" She smiled. "Absolutely nothing. But I know about building systems, creating opportunities, and making sure you have everything you need to succeed here." A few people chuckled. "We've got 6 months together," Dylan continued. By the end, you'll be certified in at least one trade. You'll have job placement assistance. And most importantly, you'll have a community of people who understand what you've been through. One veteran, a man in his 40s with graying hair and a face weathered by more than time, raised his hand. Yeah? Dylan said. Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? It was a fair question. Dylan considered his answer carefully. I got out 4 years ago, he said. Lost my wife to cancer a year later. Spent a long time feeling like I didn't fit anywhere. Like the world had moved on without me, and I was just taking up space. The room was silent. Then I met someone who reminded me that broken doesn't mean useless. That starting over isn't failure. It's courage. He glanced at Isabel, who gave him a small nod. So what's in it for me? Seeing people rebuild. Watching someone realize they're not done yet. That's worth everything. The veteran who'd asked the question nodded slowly. All right. I'm in. Others murmured agreement, and just like that, the work began. Over the following weeks, the center buzzed with life. In the carpentry section, Dylan taught precision cuts, joint construction, and finish work. He moved among the students patiently, adjusting grips, demonstrating techniques, offering encouragement. Measure twice, cut once, he'd say. And if you mess up, that's what sandpaper is for. In the welding bay, an instructor named Carl, a former Navy machinist, guided students through torch work and metal fabrication. Sparks flew. Metal hissed. Safety goggles reflected orange fire. The electrical section hummed with a different energy. Students learned to read circuit diagrams, wire outlets, install panels. It was precise, methodical work that required focus, but the real transformation happened in the quiet moments. During breaks, veterans swapped stories, compared deployments, laughed about terrible MREs and worse officers, found common ground in shared experience. Dylan watched it unfold with quiet satisfaction. One afternoon, he found Trevor, the veteran whose application had struck him, struggling with a piece of crown molding. It keeps splitting, Trevor said. Frustration evident, Dylan examined the wood. You're nailing too close to the edge. Move in half an inch. Trevor tried again. Clean installation. There you go, Dylan said. Trevor stared at his work, then looked up. I haven't felt competent at anything in 3 years. Dylan put a hand on his shoulder. You're competent. You just needed the right tools and someone to believe in you. Trevor's eyes glistened. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep showing up. Isabel, meanwhile, worked tirelessly behind the scenes. She secured contracts with local construction companies willing to hire graduates. She arranged for guest speakers, successful tradespeople who could inspire and inform. She handled insurance, permits, and 1,000 bureaucratic details that kept the center running. But she also made time to connect with students. She'd walk through the workshop, asking questions, listening to stories, remembering names and details. She wasn't just the money behind the operation. She was present. One veteran, a woman named Angela who was training in electrical work, approached Isabel during lunch. Can I ask you something? Angela said, of course. Why would someone like you care about people like us? Isabel set down her sandwich. What do you mean, someone like me? Rich, successful, you've got everything. Isabel considered this. I have wealth. That's not the same as having everything. Angela looked skeptical. I spent years building a company, Isabel continued. Made a lot of money. Impressed a lot of people. And I was miserable. Because none of it connected me to anything real. She gestured around the workshop. This is real. Watching people discover they're capable of more than they thought. That's worth more than any board meeting I've ever attended. Angela smiled slowly. You're all right, boss. So are you. As the weeks turned into months, Dylan and Isabel fell into a rhythm. They'd meet every morning to discuss the day's priorities. They'd walk through the workshop together, checking in with students and instructors. They'd end each day in the office, reviewing progress and planning ahead. And somewhere in all of that, the line between professional partnership and something deeper began to blur. It was in the small moments, the way Isabel would bring Dylan coffee without asking how he took it because she'd memorized his preference. Way Dylan would save her a seat during group sessions, always on his right, because he'd noticed she was left-handed and needed elbow room. The way they'd catch each other's eye across the room and share a silent conversation that needed no words. One evening, after everyone else had gone home, they sat in the office reviewing graduation plans for the first cohort. "I can't believe we're almost there," Isabel said. "6 months ago, this was just an idea." "You made it real," Dylan said. "We made it real." He looked at her. "Can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you ever regret this? Walking away from the corporate world to spend your days in a warehouse with sawdust and welding fumes?" Isabel laughed. "Not even once, really?" "Dylan, I spent 5 years trying to fill a void with profit margins and shareholder returns. And it never worked. But this?" She gestured around them. "I go home exhausted and happy. That's something I haven't felt in a long time." Dylan nodded. "I know what you mean." She leaned back in her chair. "Can I ask you something now? Fair's fair. Do you ever think about what comes after this? After the center is established and running smoothly?" "Sometimes. Why?" "Because I think we work well together. And I'd like to keep working with you. On this, on other projects, on whatever comes next." Dylan met her gaze. "Are we still talking about work?" Isabel smiled, a little shy, a little bold. "Maybe not entirely." He stood up, walked around the desk, and sat on the edge facing her. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Okay. I think I'm falling for you. And I've been fighting it because of Rebecca's memory, because of professionalism, because of fear. But I'm tired of fighting it." Isabel's breath caught. "Dylan, I feel the same way. But we need to be smart about this. The center depends on us working well together." "I know. So we take it slow. We keep things professional here. And outside of work, we see where this goes." She stood, closing the distance between them until they were inches apart. "I can do slow," she said. "Good. And then, because some moments can't be planned or controlled." Dylan leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. Isabel kissed him back, her hand finding his fingers intertwining. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "That felt right," Dylan said. It did. They stood there for a moment, foreheads touching, breathing in sync. Outside, the workshop sat quiet and dark. But inside that small office, something bright and new had taken root. And for the first time in years, both of them believed in the future. The article appeared online on a Tuesday morning. Dylan was pouring coffee when his phone started buzzing with notifications. Text messages, emails, missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. He opened the first link. Someone sent him. Local news now. Billionaire CEO's secret. Relationship with Veterans Center co-director raises questions. His stomach dropped. The article featured photos of him and Isabel leaving the center together, sitting close at a coffee shop, her hand on his arm. The text was worse. Isabel Hargrove, CEO of Hargrove Industries, has been funding the Ashford Veterans Training Center alongside co-director Dylan Ashford, a former Marine turned construction worker. Sources close to the project suggest their relationship may have crossed professional boundaries, raising concerns about the true motivations behind the $1 million investment. "It looks like she's buying companionship," one anonymous source stated. "Veterans deserve better than being used as props in someone's romantic fantasy." Dylan read it twice, anger building with each word. His phone rang. "Isabel, have you seen it?" she asked, voice tight. "Just now." "Dylan, I'm so sorry. I don't know who leaked this or why, but I'm handling it." "How?" "This or why, but I'm handling it." "How?" "I've got my lawyer drafting a response. We'll issue a statement clarifying the nature of our partnership and the center's mission." "That's not going to be enough," Dylan said quietly. "People believe what they want to believe." Isabel was silent for a moment. "I know." By noon, the story had spread. Local television picked it up. Social media exploded with opinions from people who'd never met either of them. Some defended them. Most didn't. "She's a rich woman playing savior. This is gross. Veterans being exploited for a PR stunt. Typical. Guy clearly saw dollar signs." "Can't blame him." Dylan stopped reading after the 10th comment. At the center, the atmosphere had changed. Students whispered in corners. A few avoided eye contact. During the afternoon welding session, one veteran, a man named Marcus who'd been doing well, approached Dylan. "Is it true?" Marcus asked. "Is what true?" "That you and Miss Hargrove are together. That this whole thing is just because she's into you." Dylan set down his clipboard. "My relationship with Isabel, whatever it is, has nothing to do with why this center exists. We built this because veterans need support. That hasn't changed." Marcus looked uncertain. "People are talking." "Let them talk. You focus on your certification." But Marcus wasn't the only one with questions. By the end of the week, 3 students had dropped out. 2 more were considering it. The local veterans organization that had been supportive suddenly went quiet. Isabel arrived at the center Friday evening looking exhausted. Her hair was pulled back severely. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "We need to talk," she said. They went to the office and closed the door. "The board at Hargrove Industries is concerned," Isabel said. "They think this scandal reflects poorly on the company. They're suggesting I step back from the center." Dylan's jaw tightened. "Step back? You built this." "I funded it. You built it. We built it together." Isabel sat down heavily. "Maybe they're right. Maybe my involvement is hurting more than helping." "Don't do that," Dylan said. "Don't let them make you doubt what we've accomplished." "But what if they're right, Dylan? What if people can't see past who I am and what I represent?" He knelt in front of her chair. "The people who matter, the students who show up every day and work hard, they know the truth. Everyone else is just noise." Isabel looked at him, eyes glistening. "I don't want to be the reason this fails. You won't be. We won't let that happen." She reached for his hand. "I care about you. More than I should, probably. But I care about these veterans more. And if stepping back means the center survives, then that's what I'll do." Dylan shook his head. "We're not making decisions based on fear. We're making them based on what's right. And what's right? Standing together, being honest, letting our work speak for itself." Isabel squeezed his hand. "You're optimistic. I'm stubborn. There's a difference." Despite the turmoil, they decided to push forward with the first graduation ceremony scheduled for the following week. 15 students had completed the program. 15 veterans who'd earned certifications and job placements that needed to be celebrated. Scandal or not, the night before graduation, Dylan couldn't sleep. He sat on his back porch, staring at the stars, thinking about Rebecca. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing," he whispered to the darkness. "But I'm trying. I hope that counts for something." His phone buzzed, a text from Isabel. "Can't sleep either. Want company? Always." 20 minutes later, she pulled up. They sat together on the porch steps, shoulders touching, neither speaking for a long time. Finally, Isabel broke the silence. "I've been thinking about what you said. About standing together. And you're right. Running doesn't solve anything. It just confirms what people already think." Dylan nodded. "So tomorrow," Isabel continued, "we show up. We celebrate these graduates. And we tell anyone who asks the truth. We're partners building something meaningful. And yes, we care about each other. And that doesn't diminish what we've created. Dylan turned to look at her. You're sure? I'm terrified. But I'm sure. He kissed her forehead gently. Then we do it together. They sat under the stars, two people who'd found each other in unexpected circumstances, holding on to something worth fighting for. Graduation day arrived with clear skies and unexpected warmth. The center's main workshop had been transformed. Rows of chairs faced a small stage. Banners hung from the walls, celebrating each trade program. A table held certificates in leather. Folders, each one representing 6 months of hard work and transformation. Dylan stood backstage, adjusting his tie. He hated ties. But today felt important enough to wear one. Isabel appeared beside him, wearing a simple navy dress and looking more nervous than he'd ever seen her. Ready? She asked. Are you? No. But I'm doing it anyway. Families began filing in. Parents, siblings, partners. Sienna sat in the front row with Mrs. Kowalski, beaming with pride. But also present were reporters. 3 local news cameras set up in the back. Journalists with notepads. The story wasn't over, and they wanted to see how it ended. Dylan felt his chest tighten. Isabel touched his arm. Hey, remember why we're here? He nodded, taking a breath. For them. For them. The ceremony began. Dylan stepped onto the stage. The room quieted. Good afternoon, he began, voice steady despite his nerves. 6 months ago, 15 people walked through those doors uncertain about their futures. Today, 15 certified tradespeople walk out ready to rebuild their lives. Applause rippled through the crowd. Before we begin handing out certificates, I want to address something. Many of you have heard stories about this center, about why it exists, about the relationship between myself and Isabel Hargrove. The room went completely silent. So let me tell you the truth, Dylan continued. Isabel Hargrove saved my life. Not with money, though her funding made this possible. She saved it by showing me that starting over isn't failure, that asking for help isn't weakness. That partnership makes us stronger. He looked directly at the cameras. Yes, we're building something together professionally. And yes, we care about each other personally. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. They're complementary. Because the best work happens when people genuinely care about each other's success. He gestured to the graduates seated in the front rows. These 15 people didn't come here because of a scandal or a relationship. They came because they needed opportunity. And we gave it to them. That's what matters. The room erupted in applause. Isabel took the stage next. I'm not good at speeches, she admitted. I'm better at spreadsheets and board meetings. But I want to say something to everyone questioning why I'm here. She paused, gathering herself. I spent years measuring success by profit margins, by shareholder value, by quarterly reports, and I was empty. Successful but empty. Her voice grew stronger. This center taught me that real wealth isn't in bank accounts. It's in watching Trevor master crown molding after years of feeling incompetent. It's seeing Angela wire her first electrical panel and realize she's brilliant. It's hearing Marcus say he finally feels like he belongs somewhere. She looked at Dylan. And yes, I care deeply about the man standing beside me. Because he showed me what integrity looks like. What service means. What love can be when it's built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Tears were streaming down several faces in the audience now. So judge us if you want, Isabel said. Question our motives, write your articles. But these 15 graduates, they're proof that what we built here matters. The applause was thunderous. One by one, graduates walked across the stage. Dylan and Isabel presented certificates together, shaking hands, sharing congratulations, witnessing transformation. When Trevor received his carpentry certification, he hugged Dylan and whispered, Thank you for believing in me. When Angela got her electrical certification, she told Isabel, "You changed my life." After the last certificate was awarded, the graduates stood together for a group photo. 15 people who'd arrived broken and were leaving whole. The reporters packed up quietly. The story they'd come for, the scandal, had been replaced by something they couldn't sensationalize. Genuine human connection and transformation. As families celebrated with their graduates, Dylan and Isabel stood to the side, watching. "We did it," Isabel said softly. "We did." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "What do you think happens now?" "We keep going. Second cohort starts in 2 weeks, then a third. Then we expand. Ambitious. You taught me that." She smiled. "I taught you ambition. You taught me purpose." Sienna ran up, throwing her arms around both of them. "That was amazing," she exclaimed. "You guys are heroes." Dylan laughed, picking her up despite her protests that she was too old for that. "We're not heroes, kiddo. We're just people trying to help." "Same thing," Sienna insisted. As the celebration continued around them, Dylan caught sight of a familiar face in the doorway. Marcus, the veteran who'd questioned him about the scandal, stood watching with something that looked like respect. Dylan walked over. "You staying for cake?" Dylan asked. Marcus nodded. "I owe you an apology. I listened to gossip instead of watching what you were actually doing. Don't worry about it. No, I need to say this. You and Miss Hargrove, you didn't just teach us trades. You showed us what it looks like when people care more about doing right than looking right." Dylan extended his hand. "That means a lot. A lot." Marcus shook it firmly. "I'm enrolling in the next cohort. Want to get my electrical certification too. We'd be glad to have you." As evening fell and the last families departed, Dylan and Isabel stood alone in the empty workshop, surrounded by the evidence of what they'd built. "Think the worst is over?" Isabel asked. "Probably not. There'll always be critics. Can we handle it?" Dylan pulled her close. "Together? We can handle anything." They stood there, 2 people who'd found each other in chaos and built something beautiful from it. And for the first time, neither of them was afraid of what came next. 6 months after graduation, Dylan found himself standing in the kitchen of Isabel's penthouse apartment in Creston City for the first time. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering skyline. Marble countertops. Modern art on the walls. Everything was sleek, expensive, intimidating. "You okay?" Isabel asked, handing him a glass of wine. "Just realizing how different our worlds are," Dylan admitted. She looked around as if seeing the space through his eyes. "This was my father's apartment. I inherited it, but never felt at home here. Too many ghosts. I get that." They moved to the balcony. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. "Sienna asked me something yesterday," Dylan said. "What?" "She asked if I loved you." Isabel's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I was figuring it out." He turned to face her. "But I think I already know the answer." Isabel set down her glass, hands trembling slightly. "Dylan, I need to tell you something. I'm scared. Terrified, actually. My last relationship ended because I chose work over partnership. And now I'm terrified of doing the same thing again, or worse, losing you the way you lost Rebecca." "Hey," Dylan said gently, taking her hands. "Fear means it matters. And I'm scared too. Scared of dishonoring Rebecca's memory. Scared of Sienna getting attached and losing someone again. Scared of not being enough for you. You're more than enough. So are you." They stood there, vulnerability hanging between them like something precious and fragile. "I love you," Dylan said simply. "I fought it because I thought loving someone new meant forgetting someone old. But Sienna helped me understand that hearts don't work that way. They expand." Tears spilled down Isabel's cheeks. "I love you too. So much it terrifies me. He pulled her close, and they held each other as the city hummed below. "So what do we do now?" Isabel whispered. "We choose this. Every day. Even when it's hard." She pulled back to look at him. "Move in with me." Dylan blinked. "What? Not here. This place is wrong. But find something together. You, me, Sienna. A home, not just a house. That's a big step. I know. But I'm ready if you are." Dylan thought about his small house with its worn furniture and memories. Thought about Sienna and what she needed. Thought about Rebecca and what she'd want for him. "Let me talk to Sienna first," he said. "If she's comfortable with it, then yes." Isabel smiled through her tears. "Yes?" "Yes." They kissed then, deep and certain. Two people choosing each other despite the fear. 3 weeks later, they found a house on the outskirts of Pinewood Heights. Big enough for all of them, with a yard for Sienna and a workshop space for Dylan. The day they moved in, Sienna ran through every room, claiming the one with the window seat as hers. "This is perfect," she declared. That night, after Sienna was asleep, Dylan and Isabel sat on the back porch of their new home. "I never thought I'd have this again," Dylan said. "Family, partnership, home." Isabel leaned against him. "Neither did I, but here we are. Here we are." They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies dance in the growing darkness, building a future neither had dared to imagine. 5 years later, the Ashford Veterans Training Center had become something beyond what either Dylan or Isabel had imagined. Original building now housed 3 full-time instructors and served 60 students per cohort. A second location had opened 2 hours north. A third was in development. Over 300 veterans had graduated. Employment rate, 92%. But the numbers didn't tell the whole story. Dylan stood at the anniversary celebration, now held annually, watching former students mingle with current ones. Trevor ran his own carpentry business and employed 4 other veterans. Angela had become an instructor, teaching electrical work with patience and precision. Marcus had started a nonprofit helping homeless veterans find housing and job training. The ripple effects were everywhere. Sienna, now 14 and impossibly tall, worked part-time at the center helping with administrative tasks. She told Dylan last week she wanted to study social work in college. "Because of what you and Isabel built," she'd said. "I want to help people find their way back too." Isabel found Dylan in the crowd, slipping her hand into his. Her wedding ring caught the light. They'd married 2 years ago in a small ceremony at the center. Surrounded by veterans, family, and the community they'd built together. "Thinking about the beginning?" she asked. "Always," Dylan said. "Sometimes I can't believe that gas station night led to all this." "That's the thing about courage," Isabel said. "You never know where one moment of bravery will lead." A young veteran approached them nervously. "Mr. Ashford? Ms. Hargrove? I just wanted to thank you. I was homeless 6 months ago. Now I've got my welding certification and a job starting Monday." Dylan shook his hand firmly. "That's all you. We just opened the door." "You opened more than a door," the young man said. "You gave me a reason to believe in myself again." After he walked away, Isabel turned to Dylan. "We did good, didn't we?" "We did great." As the celebration continued around them, Dylan thought about the journey. The fear, the doubt, the criticism. All of it had been worth it. Because sometimes life gives you a second chance disguised as a crisis. Sometimes the person you save ends up saving you right back. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself hope again. Dylan pulled Isabel close, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Thank you for that night at the gas station." She smiled. "Thank you for not driving past." Around them, laughter and conversation filled the air. Lives rebuilt, futures reclaimed, purpose rediscovered, all because one man saw someone in trouble and decided to help. All because one woman chose meaning over money, all because two broken people found each other and built something beautiful from the pieces. The Ashford Veterans Training Center wasn't just a building. It was proof that second chances were real, that love could bloom in unexpected places, and that sometimes the best thing you can build isn't made of wood or steel. It's made of hope. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us. Don't miss any upload from us.